Can you guys hear me? Cannot hear anything.
We can hear you.
There we go.
You hear us?
Yes. Just speak closely to the microphone.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Where did they?
Sorry I couldn't be there tonight.
No, you're not. Sorry.
Have on your sweat clothes. Oh, you don't. PJ's on bottom?
No. That
Are we expecting applicants or?
They said they would be here.
We give them 3 more minutes?
if everyone could just speak closely to the microphone.
Just trying to figure out where
We're looking for the applicants.
There. Thank you.
they said they'd be here in person, but see them.
What happens if they no show?
The applicants are a no-show.
Okay, well, there are options.
Let me.
Yeah, Melanie, could you please contact the applicant? That'll
Yeah,
be
I'm
the
gonna
first
call
step.
him.
And then the SRB can hear the item, although maybe it's reason for continuance. Although therefore there are members of the public that may want to speak, and should probably at least let them speak if they cannot make the next hearing.
I see there's 5 people on the Zoom. Is that just you guys?
There's one attendee that I believe is a neighbor that would like to speak on the item.
Melanie's calling.
Hi, Sue. Where are you? Oh, okay, you're parking. Okay, great.
All right. 1 minute.
Hear that, Sage?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
1 minute.
Okay. Okay, they're not, Oh, he's probably waiting. It's okay. It's parking, the property owners.
We'll start the meeting with minutes, consent agenda.
Sure, let's do that. All right. Call to order at Monday, January the 13th at 4:37 PM. Roll call.
Chair Lindsay,
Yes.
Member Delgavio,
Present.
Member Taft,
Present.
and Vice Chair Kamra and Member Middleman are noted absent.
Do we have any changes to the agenda tonight?
There are no changes, however, you do have 2 or 3 desk items related to the project at 732 West Glen, which the project planner will speak to during the presentation.
I can confirm we have those in front of us. Public communications. Anyone in the public in the room, which is empty or online, wishes to make a comment regarding anything not on tonight's agenda is welcome to do so.
We do not have a raised hand.
Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. This is the meeting minutes. Barring any comments from any members of the board on the minutes themselves, we can just take a motion to approve them.
I make the motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Chair Lindsay,
Yes.
Member Delgavio,
Yes.
and Member Taft.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect timing. All right, let's move on to our first item, first and only items.
Oh. Should I stay standing?
Have a seat. I'm gonna give my presentation and then you can go. Alrighty, give me just a moment to share my screen. Okay, hello and thank you. I will be presenting the project today at 742 West Glen Way for formal design review. The project includes the demolition of an existing one-story single-family residence, attached garage, and 2 sheds to construct a 2-story main residence, attached garage, attached ADU, vehicular gate, relocation of a driveway, and other associated site improvements. The project came before the ASRB for conceptual design review on November 27th, 2023. There are 4 desk items for this agenda item. One is an exterior light spec sheet for the proposed address lighting on the vehicular gate. The other is from a resident at 659 West Glen Way, who states the project site is a community hub since the mailboxes are adjacent to the lot, and that they appreciate the relocation of the driveway, utilization of the similar footprint, and the minimization of tree removal. They discussed that the 2-story element is appropriate for this property, but seems larger since the tallest portions are at the, quote, hook ends of the boomerang-shaped plan when viewed from the northwest side of West California Way and the new proposed driveway. The other desk item is from ASRB board member Middleman, who is unable to attend tonight. He provided resources to the property owner for proper USA flag disposal, asking the property owner respectfully to retire the existing flag on the property. Lastly, the architect from the application sent a Google image from the property at 814 West California Way showing their, quote, expansive and unobstructed view looking down at 742 West Glen Way. I also met with 3 residents from the neighborhood since the applicant submitted for formal design review. As presented in the ASRB staff report, the first resident was from 814 West California Way. Her email kind of speaks also to what we spoke about in our meeting where I shared her the plans. She shows a picture of the 2nd story poles and her view. The other resident also submitted an email as a desk item, as previously stated, pretty much stating the same things that we went over. And then lastly, a resident from the neighborhood came in today to view the plans, and they said it seemed really tall with large massing when walking down from West Glenway, which could be potentially shifted, but they did not oppose the project. Excuse me. So moving on, the property is about 1.14 acres and it is in the SR zoning district. It is located on West Glenway, adjacent to West California Way, which is off of Jefferson Avenue. The property has an existing single-story main residence, attached garage, 2 sheds, and a barn and fencing on a lot with slopes greater than 35% on the western and eastern perimeters of the property. There are no easements. The current location of the driveway is close to the intersection of West California Way and West Glenway. The proposed new main residence and attached ADU would include a 2-story element in the similar location of the existing main residence and the relocation of the driveway to be closer to West Glenway. The attached ADU would be a 2nd story above, as shown here on the right. It would be above the garage, the proposed garage. And the proposed main residence as a whole would be about 4,500 square feet. And at its tallest point, it would be approximately 24.3 feet tall. The materials of the proposed main residence and attached structures would be a cream Sundance stucco wall, beige limestone veneer siding, blended clay barrel tile roofing with a natural wooden garage door. They'd utilize low E glazing with dark bronze aluminum trim. Also, the new driveway entrance would have a new swing vehicular gate with a dark bronze metal frame and 2 brown stone veneer columns. So this is just to kind of show the 2nd story element where you can see the roofing. These are single story elements. And then this is kind of showing where the 2nd story is on the property. So here's the front of the property. Here's where the garage would be located with the attached ADU. And then here's the 2nd story primary suite on the left side. So just kind of going through the elevations, this is the primary front elevation, kind of what you would see going up the driveway. This is kind of it at a different angle. This is kind of moving towards the left if you're looking from the driveway. So this is the left side of the proposed elevation. Now we're kind of going towards the rear of that that mingle of the 2nd story and 1st story element. This would be the proposed rear. Here are the stairs going up to the proposed attached ADU on the 2nd story. Here's the side showing the attached garage. In regard to the ASRB's recommendations from conceptual design review, the applicant installed story poles and reduced the size of the rear southeast balconies by eliminating the wraparound corner balcony and reduced the window glazing facing the east. They also are utilizing low E glazing, and it utilizes minimal exterior lighting to minimize light emission and increase privacy. They also included a landscape plan that adds to the existing trees and shrubs, particularly near the newly located driveway. They are only proposing to remove 4 trees for the proposed driveway and parking, none of which are considered significant trees. The applicant and property owners are available in person for questions. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have questions of staff?
I have one, and it's with regards to the massing on the level that includes, or on the side of the house that includes the garage and the second-story ADU, that by removing or reducing balconies, it didn't necessarily reduce the mass. So it still looks pretty pronounced when you look at the story poles in place at this point. And I'm wondering if there's any consideration that instead of increasing the size of the actual building in the end, if by reducing that size, it would satisfy a lot of the comments that we've received and make it not feel such a massive unit on that end of the house.
I think that's potentially something that could be discussed. Any other questions?
Melanie, a question about that email which shows the picture of the view.
Yes.
Maybe we can correlate it with the place on the map, on the drawing, excuse me, to show what landscape will be in that place to hopefully resolve that potential issue.
Okay. Let me switch my screens.
Yeah, and that view is from West Glenway, West Glenway, from across the street.
Correct.
So when we look at the map, or is site plan.
Okay. So if we're looking at this landscape plan, this is the corner of 814 West California Way, which is the property who sent the email regarding the obstruction of view. So
So the vantage point for that for the picture is on the other side of or on West Glenway. It looks like it's there. Yes.
yeah, so here's West Glenway. Here's, and kind of turns into West California.
So all that vegetation is part of the landscape plan. It doesn't exist in reality. I guess that's what the person who sent it in meant to say.
Right, so this is what's proposed, what's in the dark black lining. So that's what's proposed. And then the applicant at this time is not proposing to remove any of the existing trees or shrubs. But
So all that circular drive with the like fountain like structure in the middle would be really hidden or somewhat hidden or obscured at least from West Glen Way.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so yeah, they're proposing some new additional landscaping here. Let's see where it has the,
Melanie, if you could back up on the previous aerial, I think member Taft was asking about the picture sent.
right,
And if we go there, this is the area where it was taken from,
right, yes.
going that way, right?
So it's really mutual interest that of the neighbor who sent email and the property owners to really obscure to cover a view of the house using landscaping. It's their interests really are aligned. Imagine.
I believe so. Maybe the architect could speak more to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No questions from me.
Okay, great. Thank
So
you.
we'll move on to the applicant's presentation.
Good afternoon, evening, planning commissioners or design review board and planning staff, Melanie and Sage, the omnipotent Sage. Glad to be here. The owners, Steph and Garrett. Steph has young children, so she apologizes she couldn't make it. She may observe from Zoom. And Garrett is a rancher, farmer, and always working, so he couldn't make it. So they both apologized, but their father is here, Sal, and so he came to.
that well, I'm sorry.
But he came in their stead. And so they've owned the lot for a very long time, and they want to design and build their family home there. We worked on the site in such a way as to find the portion of the site that seemed most amenable to a two-story building, since we know we had to build design a two-story building in order to address their future needs. The site is generally sloped. It is a prominent site in the neighborhood, and along the west and the east, and a little bit on the north, and then as you get further down the south side, we have a lot of 35% slopes and steeper slopes, and so we wanted to minimize the grading and place the home in essentially where the existing grading has already taken place, thereby also disturbing the mature trees that are there as little as possible, save as many as possible, and also accommodate a new septic system. And so the new septic system has a lot of rules with it as well, and so the best placement for that was in the south, in the rear yard, toward the south, where the more gentle slopes. And of course, you can't plant too much or build too much around the septic. So this also reinforce the idea of keeping the home up along the pad that is existing. Now, I did speak to the civil engineer about the idea of, is there any potential of lowering the grades a bit, even though we are trying to minimize the grading. And he said we could probably grade the flat pad where we're working right now down another foot if we needed to. He prefers not to, but he said we could. And so that would be a possibility without disturbing too much of the drainage pattern and, again, the roots of the existing trees that we're trying to save. We have reached out to the neighbors, and Steph actually did personally go to many of the neighbors' homes, all of whom were very complimentary and very nice and welcoming to her bringing her family to the actual site and to the neighborhood, and to have plans to live there for a long time. Later, very recently, Friday, basically, we received those couple comments about the view with the story poles. The story poles have been adjusted. They were blown down by the wind. They've been up for a very long time, since the end of November. But the wind blew them down, so they were adjusted, and then we pushed them back through the design review process. The building was really located exactly where the existing building is, but because the planning staff felt that it was too close, because of the interpretation, planning director has the discretion to determine that the front can be extended and basically have two fronts and one side and a rear, instead of two sides, a front and a rear, because of the curvature of the streets. The way West Glen Way meets West California Way, that becomes all front. So our front setback was extended quite a bit. So to accommodate that, we pushed the building back, and we pushed it westward, away from the street. So the story poles, again, were adjusted. There was a view, I did take a view from across. We tried to accommodate all neighbors. We're surrounded basically by neighbors, and so to find the right placement and form of the building to accommodate everyone's existing views, and of course increasing from a very small one-story, which is frankly partially not even vertical, and is to go from that, which they've been used to for many years, to a new two-story home, of course, is a big difference. To mitigate the impact of that, we've tried to configure the building in such a way that the massing gets broken down into the wings. And that also is afforded by the idea of the Andalusian style, which we're hearkening to, because that's lends itself to an equestrian vernacular, while also allowing the use of stone, stucco, and courtyards. And so the three wings form shallow courtyards, and also allow the massing then to break down, as was described by one person has, a couple smaller buildings linked by a couple smaller massings, which are 2 stories linked by a smaller piece in between to allow it to feel like more smaller buildings instead of one very large building. All of those things being said, we've also worked with the colors. Of course, the materials themselves are very fire resistant, much more than other materials that you might see in the neighborhood. But there are examples of other stucco homes in the neighborhood as well. Now that I did take a view and sent it in, and I think it was provided to you as a desk item, that as Sage was pointing out when he was circling, or Melanie was circling on the view just a minute ago, where the planting will be enhanced at the front of the property where the driveway entrance is being shifted. We're actually shifting it away from the corner to keep it a little less prominent. And I think some of the neighbors, most of the neighbors were appreciative of that because all the mailboxes for the whole neighborhood are grouped down by the corner. So that will allow the view of the home to be a little bit less even than what it is now because the driveway will be shifting to a more private location. And then we're enhancing the landscaping along the front. The view, when you're actually at the home, standing on the lot or in the street on West Glen Way or West California Way, looking across the home, which is just north of West Glen Way, is the view that I sent in, which is very expansive, long view. The other view that you were looking at just for a second there that Mr. Taft was pointing to, that is a view when you're very close to the property, as Sage and Melanie were pointing out. That's when you're basically in our driveway, looking at the home, as opposed to standing much further back. And so the impact of the 2-story home obscuring the long view is really only about 10% of the overall view. And so the overall view is still essentially the same. It's still very expansive, very long. And now it will be enhanced by the new landscaping. Now, when you add the landscaping to the existing landscape, because parts of it are very mature, and we want to keep things as native as possible, we want to enhance pollination, et cetera. We can't overplant, but we're trying to plant the right types of trees. So we're planting oaks, olives, lilacs. And so those are of all the planting groups that we are showing there, those are the ones that will achieve some height, of course, and help to fill in the gaps of the existing tree landscaping, which is actually fairly substantial already in the front and along the sides. But we're going to fill in the gaps with those. And then there's a lot of other plants that are sort of mid-range plants. So depending on where you are. So when folks are in the distant views in their homes, up the hill, et cetera, looking across, they will recognize that this landscaping has been enhanced and bolstered while also looking very natural and healthy. And when you're walking down the street very close to the property, you'll also notice the difference between what's there now and what will be there when we plant, because the plants will be enhanced. Of course, as you know, when you work on bolstering a garden, a natural landscape, and you choose plants that are mutually beneficial to each other, everything starts to look healthier. The blooms there'll be more blooms, there'll be more color in the leaves, there'll be more leaves, everything the bark will look more stable and have nicer colors. So everything will be better. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I could go on forever in terms of level of sustainability. Everything we design tends to be LEED Platinum, near zero energy, sometimes very water efficient, near water efficient, zero water efficiency a lot of times. But the more passive things that we focus on are the energy efficiency, the indoor health quality, the placement of windows and types and sizes so that you can get natural breezes. So you don't always have to rely on mechanical ventilation and air conditioning. And Steph and Garrett are very much indoor-outdoor folks, so they will they'll be opening their windows and allowing the the fresh air to come in and not rely on the mechanical HVAC. All of the paving pattern, we're reducing the pervious portion, the impervious portion of the lot. The permeability is going to go up. There's a lot of compacted gravel areas out there right now, not to mention some footprint areas that were used for things over the decades that are no longer needed. And then eventually the corral and barn, which are also in the southern portion of the lot, which is a perfect location actually for the animals because they get natural protection there from the elements. But that eventually will be upgraded and brought up to current code as well. It's a little bit old right now, but the family wanted to get the home built, get themselves established, and then work on some of these other things as they go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The homeowner is online. Does the homeowner wish to make a comment or statement? I don't.
Would you like to say anything?
I can say, but I cannot hear what you say.
Oh,
Not right now, I think.
I
Okay,
just been
all right.
tested to have a hearing, but.
Okay.
So I can talk, but I cannot listen.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone on the board have questions for the applicant? Yes? Could you step back up to the microphone, please? Sure.
These are really excellent architecture and landscape plans. I assume you have a civil engineer or as a member of the team.
Yes.
Question is, just help you to maybe address any possible trouble down the road. What is the closest compliant fire hydrant here?
Oh, I think it's shown.
It is addressed by the fire department, but it's
It's
it
right across
happens
the
at
street.
the end of the.
So on sheet A 1.1 is one of the sheets where it shows up. It's right across the street from the proposed driveway location.
So it is
So,
within 600 feet.
oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
To confirm. Thank you.
you bet.
My question is pretty much about the massing as it appears on the side that reads the Patrick's property. I guess it's the western corner. And when I drove over and pulled into the driveway down below there, this property, the home 742,
Mhm.
and you look up, it's the posts, the story poles are right there.
Yeah.
So to protect that property from, once there aren't many trees or anything in that location, so how will they, looking at the plan, it doesn't look like there's a ton of big stuff going there. That will be protected, or is
Yes.
there an
We-
opportunity to reduce the mass on that end?
Honestly, yeah, we've probably worked the most, they've been the most responsive neighbor, and we've worked a lot with them. And so we've had many discussions and shared drawings and had Zoom meetings with them, et cetera. And they are appreciative of the idea that we're willing to work with them to, as it goes forward, to decide exactly which plants to plant. That the landscape architect worked with them very closely as well, and we, with their help, selected the trees that we're showing there. There's a balance to be had, and so what we decided was with the landscape architect and the owner, Akio, et cetera, and his brother and some other folks, that we would find the right, because also it's not always the best thing to go and buy the largest tree. You get the right size for the right species, and then see how that looks and feels. And then if they need more, the owners have said that they're more than happy to work with them on an ongoing basis. The folks those folks are also contractors and builders and landscape designers, et cetera. So they know a lot about plants and trees. And so they said, yeah, they understand that sometimes it's a ongoing process. And so that plus eventually a fence of some type, because we're proposing no new fences at the moment, and the fence that's there right now is sort of hit or miss.
Right.
And it's not continuous. And the owners just didn't want to get bogged down in that and talk right now for all sorts of reasons, but are happy to build a fence as we go forward. So we have conversations with them about working with them to decide the type of fence, the style, the, coloring, which portions want to be more transparent, which portions want to be very, much more opaque. So yeah, there's a lot of discussion with our next door neighbors.
The tricky
They,
part is
they like
once,
the idea of that portion of the house not being the part where they're living so much. It's not, there's more like, public activity as opposed to private activity. And also, of course, that their view is still expansive as well.
yes, the challenge is only like, once we walk out of the room and say yay, then does it become contentious, or is it a wonderful relationship going forward? That,
Yeah, no, we've worked in Woodside a long time, decades now, and we know it's always, I mean, I'm still talking to owners and neighbors on projects I worked on 20 years ago. And new folks move in and they want to change everything. And then you work with everybody, and there's always ways to find we always try to instill in this idea, like I was saying, about enforcing the natural kind of landscaping, the mutually sustainable plants, the pollinators, the water-friendly aspects. We're trying to infuse that into everything. And people, as they start to understand that, they realize they can probably have something very close to what they were envisioning with maybe a slightly different selection of plants and maybe a different placement, et cetera. So eventually it all works. And
just the building is the building, and once that mass
Yeah.
is there, it's going to be there.
yeah.
I don't know how to address.
Just to thank you again for the detail. I found exactly the place you pointed out,
Yes,
115 feet away. So thank you. very
good,
much.
you bet. Yeah, by the way, the the two-story height limit it's 30 feet and we're at 24 and some change. So we did try really hard to keep everything low. You can see where we've used some very low plate heights in some areas where we allow the roof to really shed down in a low fashion. And then we, create shadow lines. Again, the massing is also geared toward allowing the sun angles to enhance the building as well. So it's hard to pick all that up in renderings without,
Sure.
taking too much artistic license. But in reality, the sun will modulate the building as well.
And was there any consideration of like overhangs in the front of the house? Because on the back, it looks really attractive that has been created, but on the front of it, again, this is just addressing the mass. It just feels like here's this
Well,
solid piece.
yeah, so the ADU itself does cantilever out over the garage
Mhm.
to cast some shadows and corbel lines across the garage face.
Right.
Again, it's going to be sort of a dark facade most of the time. It's not going to be bright because the sun is, of course, around the south. As it comes around, it doesn't really catch any sun until it comes around way in the evening when the
Sure.
sun's going to be really low. And so all of those shadow lines are going to be really long. And so it will be, if we're talking about the facade facing north and west, then it will be, very much modulated and enhanced. And also the materials of the garage door are wood, a wood over, a fire rated wood door. And the corbels are rustic wood. And then we have the balcony railings, which are going to be casting shadows. The tiles themselves are a type of tile that is handmade. They actually make these tiles by taking the clay and wrapping it around their shin. And so they're not the factory made cement tiles. They're actually clay tiles. And so they all have their own shape roughly along, of course, along a module. But they look very authentic. And so they have that, they're thinner, they're not big hulky. And so they cast a lot of shadows as
And
well.
you're talking about this, the garage face this way. I was talking about the side, which is actually the front. And is that,
The side facing West
is
Glen
that
Way?
north facing? So the 90 degree to the garage.
Oh, okay,
Is
yeah, so that would be north,
North facing.
northeast. So that will have some morning light. And yeah, so on that, what we've tried to do there is to, if I can turn to that page here.
Where
What we wanted to
where the
do there-
balcony is.
Yes, so we have the we have the balconies and we have the recesses, the roof changing its mass along there. We have the bay window of the kitchen. Is that the area you're speaking of?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have those different elements of the building to help it
Yeah, just the
to,
furthest right one. Yeah, furthest right monolith, I guess.
yes, so the furthest right portion, which is like you say, the, northeast wall of the garage.
think
we'll
so,
say.
yeah.
Yeah, so we have the little windows and we have the cantilever in the balcony to cast some shadows across that. We have the difference in massing of the two gables, the smaller gable within the larger mass to, break down the facade in that way. And then, we do have plants along there as well, to soften that area, vines. We have plans for vines to grow up there, because this is the perfect kind of facade to have a tight, we don't want to obscure the circulation for the parking, too much. And the circulation of folks walking to the, front door. But we have, so the ability to have the very, kind of a wine country feel, where you have the plants planted in the same surface that is an extension of the, if we say, granulated, permeable pavers or DG material that extends right up to the wall. But there's the layering of parking, plants, ground cover, et cetera, that can still thrive in those areas, but still stay tight to the building. And then the mass drops down considerably around, as it gets toward the kitchen. And then we have the accent of the bay window for the kitchen, because of course, Steph loves to cook. And so the kitchen will be a highlight. She'll be there a lot. And then she has, the kitchen is special. It has some special lighting. She can see the fountain. She can see when people come. She can, and it's part of the greeting. It's really sort of the second most important element to the front door. We have the greeting of the front door, which can be formal and stately, but then right near it, we have the much more sort of humble, personal level of the kitchen bay window being a very celebrated greeting.
Melanie, is it possible to bring up this photograph that was submitted as a desk item? Can you bring that up on the screen?
Yeah, give me just a moment.
I just wanted to have you point out on this photograph where the existing structure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Believe we're looking at the roof of the existing
Yes, on the left.
on the left,
Yes.
sort of beyond trees.
So the new building would be basically in that same location.
Right,
Mhm.
twice the height.
Yes.
Are you talking about this?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
So that gray slab, that right where the cursor is there, that's the existing structure.
So that's where we'll be enhancing the planting, and that's of course, we'll be enhancing the architecture as well. The long ridge view will be unchanged
Yep.
from that group of trees to the right of the existing building, all the way, of course, to the right.
Yep.
Desert looking backyard is part of another problem.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, in terms of planting, ideally, you're gonna need something that's gonna grow to 25 feet or more in order to sort of recreate this view in some way.
Yeah. And this is one of those, like I say, we do have some new oaks out there and olives. The olives olives can get pretty tall, 20 feet. I don't know if they can get to 25, but they can get pretty tall.
In
But
20,
the-
in
but-
20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, might take that long. Yeah,
So
we have.
I bring this up only because I think, this particular view, I don't think is helping the privacy argument, in that I think you imagine the structure there is now a two-story structure. this particular perspective, I mean, it'll be quite visible initially.
Yeah.
Planting tall, species that'll grow rapidly is one way to address that. But
And
I
we
do,
can,
thi-
we
I
could
do
work
think
with the
it'll,
landscape architect.
Yep.
To reassess that and
Yep.
to find, his main concern was to, not plant too much all at once, but to look at it as a ongoing palette, sort of a developing, I guess developing painting, applying a color at a time, as opposed to showing too much at once.
with the exception of filling in where the existing driveway is.
We would be filling in where the existing driveway is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah, but yeah, it's absolutely.
On the topic of planting and fencing, I think the neighbors immediately to the west and southwest, at the bottom of the slope.
Mhm.
My only concern there is that, planting a fence on the boundary line and planting on the boundary line is not gonna immediately address their privacy concerns. I think planting at the top of the slope may be required in order to fully address that.
And this is exactly part of the discussion with them. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yes, it was an ongoing discussion, and they said, we understand that it's going to take some time for us all to agree on exactly which plants are the appropriate plants and type of fence. So they said, we're not gonna, we're not gonna say anything about it right now. We're gonna wait for you to get under construction, and then we accept the idea that you'll work with us as we go forward.
That's the most important thing to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it is all about, well, because their family's growing, and you know how these projects, they want to make sure their kids are set and ready to get, enrolled at Woodside schools, and they're babies right now, but they're going to be ready for school probably by the time the home is done.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the pieces of feedback from the conceptual review was about just the sheer amount of glazing, and how that was going to be addressed. I went through and I compared some renderings from the conceptual review to the formal, and couldn't see a reduction in number of windows or size of windows. I know that you're going with a multi-pane window, you're recessing them somewhat.
Mhm.
Can you speak to other ways which you are trying to address that piece of feedback from conceptual review?
Sure. Yeah, the one area that we did reduce glazing was the facade facing West Glenway. So where we used to have a larger a larger set of French doors and a larger wraparound balcony.
Okay, this is the exit or the doors from the ADU to the balcony.
Actually from the the primary suite
Oh, okay,
upstairs,
the
yeah.
other end, got it.
So that became a single door.
Yep.
Instead of a double French door, and the balcony was made much smaller.
Yep.
And so then the windows, and of course, the windows are shaded below. A lot of, like you say, the windows are recessed. It's a type of glass that's a Cardinal Low E 366, I believe it's called. And what it is, it has a ability to have clarity looking out, but it doesn't allow it's made such that looking inward, it looks darker, and it doesn't reflect. It reflects like 70% less than most double pane glass. So those are the qualities it has. Because of those things also, it also helps, it's more bird friendly because they see the reflection as they're coming toward it. They don't think there's a tree there. They see themselves coming and they steer away. So those are the main things, the divided lights, the true divided lights we have to give some mass to the windows as well and articulate them. But other than that, I think we narrowed some of the windows, like the windows along the ADU cantilevering over the garage area. I think we narrowed those up a bit, but we didn't make huge reductions in glass, you're right. But that was we focused on the facade facing street in terms of that. none of the other neighbors requested that as we were talking to them. And, the only, Sage and Melanie asked us to reduce the amount of glass facing the street. So we worked on that, and then as well as the landscaping.
Any plans for solar?
Yes, the owner is deciding whether they're gonna put the solar on the home, and if so, which part, or a ground mounted array. They do want solar, but, they're not as sure exactly which way to go with that yet. We have details for installations that we've done with barrel tile as well as other roof types. And so, we have time, to determine which array they would like. It tends to be, on their particular lot, that would also be a discussion with neighbors. It tends to be, most of the uphill neighbors, it won't affect them because we would be placing it on the west and south, and they're, for the most part, downhill. But sometimes the ground mounted array is more conducive to everyone, so.
Thank you.
Noticing that on the sheet A70, you have that detail already shown.
So how we recess it with the tile, yeah. So when we do install it with barrel tile, in other words, what Mr. Taft is referring to is we have a way to reduce the height of the panels so that the panels recess right into the tile. In fact, we've had buildings in much more dense neighborhoods in Palo Alto, et cetera, where if you're walking, the house is real close to the sidewalk and to the neighbors. And when you are in their yards or in the sidewalk, you don't see the panels. And with this detail. Mhm.
Any other questions?
It's a question to you as an architect. I noticed that you use transoms in some cases,
Mhm.
and then you have arched doors in the same view. Was it in this? What was the intent of it, architecturally speaking?
Well, if you have the door itself arched, it is a more expensive door, and so a more prominent location to justify the expense. And so, but sometimes we want to, carry that aesthetic to another portion of the home and allude to the idea of the
Yes.
tie-in and the importance of the arch. However, save some money by not actually making the arch part of the door. And then the other aspect is that we have in the past, depending on how the owners feel, we design the transoms. We like to design the transoms in the interior doors as well, because you get really nice cross ventilation but while retaining privacy. You can close the door, but you can open the transom a bit and you get that airflow. So that's a thing, that's old traditional idea that works. But it costs a little more to put those two units, you have two units to buy and to install as opposed to one. So we'll see how that discussion goes, but we have done that and it works. The folks we have done it for love it.
So cost engineering, based on my limited experience, transom is actually is less expensive option than having curved
Yes.
doors the same height. That's what you're.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll open it up for public comment. If there's anyone in the public who wishes to make a comment with regards to this project in the room or online.
We do have a member online.
I don't see a raised hand.
Steve Patrick, would you like to speak? He's muted.
Mute.
He's raised his hand.
Okay. I guess you can hear me.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Sage. Thanks, board members. I really wasn't going to say anything. I just wanted to see how this thing precipitated out. I think there certainly was concerns from our neighbors. I did get a chance to review the plans, so I think my position is the Architectural Review Board should deliberate and make the best determination possible. And I appreciate the owner's willingness to, as this thing progresses, if we need more trees, more planting, more screening, open fencing, they're open to those suggestions as the project progresses. But I know they've been looking at this for at least 3 years, so it's probably time to get something done. I guess the one thing I did hear is Sage made 2 front yards or front setbacks, so it actually pushed the house 10 feet closer to basically the cliff on the adjoining lot. So I'm surprised that that actually occurred. But if that's, the wisdom
Is that
of
real?
the planning director, I guess, 250-foot, 50-foot front and a 50-foot side yard, that's a tricky one. So I can appreciate the problem and having to push the house closer to,
The
I
cliff.
guess, the cliff on the other side, which I think Pat mentioned. It seems like makes it tricky. But yeah, let the Architecture Review Board make comment and appreciate the applicant, willingness to work with us in the future. And yeah,
It's a big
look
house.
look forward to seeing something new there. It does seem big, but I guess that's what's needed. So that's the applicant's desire. So, all right. Thank you
Thank you.
for your time. Yeah.
Okay. Assume that there's no other public person online for making comment? No, we're good?
Nope.
All right, thank you. So closing the public hearing on that and opening it up for board discussion. Who would like to kick us off?
Almost on the corner, you're not gonna miss that for a very long time. And
If you could just speak into the microphone a little bit more,
Sorry, Sage.
no problem.
Here,
Thank
did you hear what I said, or should I repeat?
I did not hear, but I hear you now.
I wish that we could propose that they push back the ADU further so it did not feel like such a massive portion of the structure. It seems like the garage, since it's on the ground floor, is not as problematic as the ADU. And when you look at the dimensions of the actual rooms inside, it doesn't feel like they would be at a loss for it still being a good space if it was pushed back 2 or 3 feet. And I wonder if that's something that can be considered.
I'll just offer a comment with regards to landscaping. I think we're pushing a lot of responsibility onto a good landscaping plan and, more importantly, a good landscaping process, engaging neighbors to have a successful outcome here, such that all the surrounding and impacted structures are satisfied in terms of their privacy. As you noted at the outset, it is a prominent location, literally sitting on a promontory, I think, technically, putting it within view of most surrounding properties. So I think I reinforce the need for an effective landscaping plan that engages the neighbors throughout the process to see that their needs are met. Member Taft.
Altogether, as compared to what we see today in reality, this is, I think it's a big step in the right direction. Beautifully designed. Location-wise, I can see your concern because that corner indeed is the most visible corner from the street, and it's a pretty massive structure. So how it's going to be mitigated, that's an interesting question.
And truly, I don't see that landscape could mitigate that.
In the short term.
While we're all alive.
Well, we're all in line. Yeah.
Well, it would help, again, we can, it's certainly up to scale. We can just check the distance from the corner, from the north east corner of the house to the street. It may be still a substantial distance. From the
So you're
corner of
asking
the
the
garage
corner-
and ADU
The ADU to this
to the
76
west dome,
feet.
76 feet. Yep. 76 feet.
76 feet.
Yes,
Well,
that's the closest corner.
What's the grade difference there? You know, roughly?
I believe we have about a 4-foot grade difference from the street to the garage door.
Okay.
I mean, what we could do is, if you, should I
Sure.
make a suggestion?
Please do.
So
Yeah.
if this is, I think that the owners would be willing to allow me to say that if it doesn't hold up the process, that we could offer a rendition of that massing that reduces, maybe pushes some back, like you say, and perhaps creates, we have the balcony that is facing it, so we would maybe sort of create a similar idea to what we did at the primary suite, where we, instead of having one long facade, what our thinking was originally was there's a lot of traditional elements in the Andalusian style where you see this rectangle stacked above a rectangle.
Mhm.
And so that's what we were basing that on. So if we take a departure from that style strictly and break up the massing on that side, well, I think that we could work with the idea of the garage door and perhaps create a small balcony also facing that way over the garage. But if the protrusion is not a good idea, then we just recess, create a roof line and add some barrel tile along the top of the garage door area and break the plane between the garage wall and the wall of the ADU above. Like you say, that would potentially reduce some square footage, but it's an ADU. And so I think that it could probably live with that. And then that would also potentially enhance the facade facing toward the fountain, toward the street, because it will make it a little bit more quaint. So we would be willing to do that. And I think that if we were, I would propose that we would be allowed to do that as we move forward to building permit stage, so that we can do the two together, because there's so much time between now and the time that will ever get approved because of the process. And then we still have to get into construction. So we have to.
Understood.
Yeah.
just to point out that the closest place is the beginning, the first step of the staircase leading to the AD. So this is not a two-story corner, but essentially a single story with the balcony at the top.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
actually the distance is to the second story per se is a little bit longer than 76. It's probably
Yeah,
probably
it's-
more like 82 feet away.
I think at least, yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Thank you.
Nope.
Nope.
All right. Sage, you would like to take a shot at summarizing the feedback?
Okay, so we are normally used to a lot of conceptual design review projects in front of the ASRB. This is a formal design review project. And so therefore this would be the recommendation of the ASRB to move forward for building permits. The staff report provides a number of recommended conditions of approval. Any changes to the project at this time, the different options are to continue the item with direction to the applicant, to make changes to come back to the ASRB, or to provide conditions within the formal design review conditions already provided. And those could be modified to address comments from the ASRB. I apologize, that wasn't that clear. To restate, you may modify the conditions of approval in the staff report per the comments from the ASRB to be addressed by staff or to come back for ASRB review. And what I've heard are looking at pushing the ADU back above the garage door, to reduce some mass, create some one-story roofing materials on that side.
And it's not as much above the garage door, Sage, it's around to the 90-degree of that wall, which is the facade or the front of the building, right? We're on the same page?
Yep.
Thank you.
So therefore, if the ASRB like to add a condition, and looking at there where Melanie is moving forward, there's the balcony shown on the right side of the drawing, left. And I believe Board Member Delgavio was referring to that area,
Correct.
which
The area on the right, correct? Above the garage? Sorry.
With the balcony.
with the balcony.
The
Excuse me.
Specific request from the board is to look at reducing that mass
Correct.
further? Okay, got it.
So it could be, as opposed to cantilevered over the garage, whether it's flush with the story below or further recessed back, exposing a little bit more of the roof line on the lower floor.
Well, but hopefully more if it's reduced enough.
Yes, so it would either,
It will actually look more massive than how it would, more like, as a element of Spanish. At the moment it's flat, it's not.
Yeah, we're not trying to make it flat. We would ideally like it to be recessed beyond the garage and then potentially have the roof overhang come out further so that it gives back the interest as addressed on the back.
Next one, next page down, I think, Alan.
This one.
That one there.
Yes. That's the closest to it.
Yep.
And that's what
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing everyone.
That's what 76 feet, we mentioned the distance of 76 feet. That's for this corner, no?
76 feet is to the left fender of the pickup truck. So the other
yeah.
side where the garage door is closest to that corner, that's the corner where it's 76 feet to the street.
Okay, what
The
about
stair is much further
Right.
than 76 feet from the street.
So we're talking about the
It's-
left corner,
It's
not the right staircase.
That's what I'm hearing. Maybe if you show Melanie the around the corner of the garage.
Do you have a site plan, Melanie, just so we can see where the street, I know the street, this is West Glen and it curves.
Yeah, let me
slightly.
pull up the proposed site plan.
Thank you.
just to make sure that we
We're all,
Yes, so this is 75 feet from the property line. Here's the garage.
the other one.
And then this is the,
that's a driveway to the right. right?
correct, right.
No, but the west, that
So-
grade line to the
So from-
west of the property is a driveway.
From the bottom of the stairs, to the street? What is the
Stairs is
essentially?
the back side of the property.
Correct.
So no one sees it, right?
No,
No.
So, but this is the closest one, but it's of no concern. The one which is further away, 76 feet, that's the point of contention, right?
Yeah, I think
Right.
Ms. Gavio was asking us to, that rectangle that Melanie just circled,
yes,
to push that back.
exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Does anyone on the board feel this project should be continued to come back to the board with changes?
And is that because we'd like to see that the planning department has achieved what our goal is and see the landscaping, or for the neighbors to feel comfortable that everything has been discussed and will be captured?
I'm just doing a litmus test on whether you feel this needs to come back, or do we entrust handing this off to?
How do you feel, Sage?
Well, so the first thing I would ask is, are there changes that are recommended? And if so, should those changes come back? And what we've been most recently discussing is looking at pushing back. And stop there, Melanie. This
Correct.
area here to be pushed further back. Cantilever here, that would be something architects would
And
figure
really, when
out.
we say push back, it really is reduced because you couldn't push back further. You'd be off the cliff in the backside there, correct?
Yeah, sorry, you're correct. And meaning to recess this portion of the structure further back, so it is recessed behind the 1 story below.
We agree. And the architect's nodding his head. We're on the same page.
Okay, so the question is, do you want to form that in a way of a condition of approval for staff to review, or to bring it back to ASRB? I'll just give you staff's side of the coin as it pushes back. How this other cantilever over here works is something that we'll just resolve and need to look at. Or something, is there a need for the balcony itself to be removed, or just push this part of the building further back from the 1 story below? Something we can easily condition.
If I may offer, I was thinking that that facade that you've been circling, that we would push it back. We would create a barrel tile element above the garage between the gable and the garage below. And the balcony would become about half the size it is right now. So it'd be more like a Juliet balcony.
I think that would make an enhancement to the project, honestly.
I mean, we're happy to take suggestions that make really good sense. And I think that Ms. Gavio is on to something here. And I think that as I'm looking at it, it would be a better project. And so we are happy to do this.
So, given this discussion, my perspective is I'm completely comfortable putting this in as a condition and not requiring continuation of the formal design review.
Agreed.
Second that.
Okay.
Second that.
So yeah, that's all very clear on staff side. We can strike that condition in which we'll be recessing this portion of the building further back from the 1 story below.
Yep.
And that will be submitted prior to issuance of a building permit with plans to be reviewed by staff.
Correct. As it pertains to landscaping, it's hard to put conditions on it. It's always subject to contextual decisions as project moves along. I think the only thing
And-
we request, of course, is the engagement of surrounding properties to make sure that they're satisfied.
And in Los Altos Hills, that's how they do it, right? During construction, then you bring in the landscaping plan, and then you have another chance to look at it. Or somebody, does. So it could be you, could be someone else.
Okay. Do we have a formation of a motion?
I'll make a motion
Yes.
to basically not ask to come back, provided the correction which was suggested, improvement which was suggested is satisfied.
I would second that.
Okay.
And sorry, just through the chair, what we would be doing is adding a condition to reduce that facade that we were looking at, or have it in the condition to be recessed from the first story below. And that would be the change needed among the rest of the conditions in the staff report.
To minimize the perceived mass of that side of the building as viewed from the street.
Is that sufficiently measurable?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay,
His head's hanging. Have we beat this?
all right.
Chair Lindsay,
Yes.
Member Delgado,
Absolutely.
Member Taft.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank
And your
you very much
suggestions.
for your patience.
Thank you, Melanie.
And thank you all, especially for not being there, but we'll have a letter issued within the next day or so.
That's it. No more items on the agenda.
Correct.
That-
No further reports from staff.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, Sage.
Thank you.
With that, I will close the meeting at 5:48 PM.
Seems